Cris Beswick and Derek Bishop, they advise multinational companies on their leadership and their brand positioning, and they think it's possible to have the best of both worlds. You can have culture change and you can have consistency at the same time, and you can have innovation and firm structures. This is a double act, so it's a bit of innovation in itself. Please welcome Cris Beswick and Derek Bishop.
Good morning. Anyone with sore heads today? And you know who you are, because I was here last night and I saw the drinkers. So, firstly, I'm going to rearrange some furniture. There we go. Okay, so, as Winifred has just pointed out, my name is Cris Beswick. And to give you a quick background, you've got our bios, but quick background, I spent about 15 years in the design industry and was fortunate enough over that time to advise lots of companies, possibly some who are represented in the audience today. And I was fortunate enough about 6 days before the Lehman Brothers crash to structure an exit, sign the deal and get out. And what I've done since then is built a career advising organisations all over the world about innovation, about how to be more entrepreneurial regardless of their size. And throughout the course of that, I've also been fortunate enough to not only work with great organisations, but work with great consultancies as well. And Derek Bishop, my co-host today, represents one of those. Derek runs an organisation called Culture Consultancy, and the work that Derek and his team do on cultural change and alignment is genuinely first class. So I thought it'd be prudent to ask Derek to co-speak with me today, to give you guys an insight into some of the things we're talking to organisations about in terms of innovation, and certainly where we see some of the parallels between the behaviour we need to drive innovation and the behaviour and the things we need to drive really exceptional customer experiences. We've got a clicker. So, the human touch, how innovation leads to exceptional customer experience. And if some of you, if you were fortunate enough to be here yesterday and to hear stories from Ryan in particular at Pets at Home, you'll now have a really deep understanding of how important that human touch is, and certainly the people side of both innovation and progression and customer experience. So, our first slide, and it's over to Derek.
So I think what's all the pressures that we've had over the last few years and competition have driven, and not just competition but consumer demand, has driven a lot of these things. A lot of need for self-service, increased accessibility, speed, and actually, products and services, in terms of price comparisons, if you look at in the insurance market, how easy it is now to actually compare your insurance prices and switch every year. All of those things have actually driven operational excellence, efficiency, but actually at the cost of what? Because what ends up from a customer perspective is that you end up being processed, okay? And actually a lot of the emotion out of many of the experiences these days has been lost, because these things in terms of driving down cost, getting price down in order to win business has driven us down that route of getting the most efficient way of doing things, standardising processes, systemising as much as possible to drive out cost. But what it's done is actually left many of the service experiences to be okay rather than exceptional. And if you think about many of your own interactions, you'll think, actually, yes, I've just been ticked, I've just been done, I've done my transaction. But actually, that's not actually going to help us any in moving forward, because actually everybody can do that. So where's your differentiation?
So, anyone know? So these are some figures from the Institute of Customer Service, but the figures here are about satisfaction. Does anyone know what their satisfaction figures are, or their net promoter scores are? Anyone know where they sit? Yeah? Anyone else? Does anyone do figure here? Does anyone take part in the ICS study? Yeah? I'm not going to ask you to embarrass yourself to say whether you're at the bottom of the chart or the top, because that would be rude. But the point the reason why we're showing this slide is 50%, the results tell us that 50% of organisations are scoring average in terms of customer satisfaction. And there's only a small percentage, a small few of organisations, particularly in the UK, that are scoring, that we can use the word exceptional. And it's in that area where we all need to focus. How are we driving really genuinely exceptional experiences for our customers? And how are we driving that satisfaction figure? And some of the companies, and possibly some represented today, and obviously First Direct, ASOS, John Lewis, Waitrose, Amazon, these guys they're in that top percentage. They're in the exceptional satisfaction sort of region. But the main thing here is they are consistently there. It's very easy for organisations to spike, but the key thing here is how do we consistently score high in figures like this and in surveys like this? And the whole point about consistency is that it has to be part of the organisation's DNA. It has to be part of culture. It has to be part of what that organisation does and how it does it.
So it's all very well looking at an index like that, but let's make it very personal. So I did one of those probably for many of us, one of those rare things not very long ago, and that was actually I went to the bank. Okay, and I know we've got Metro Bank presenting later on this morning, but I actually, very rare occurrence, I actually went to the bank and actually went to the counter of a bank, which I find it quite interesting that some banks now are actually putting the counters upstairs, because for most of us, we only visit the cash points and the machines downstairs. And what was interesting on this occasion, it wasn't my experience, but it was actually, funnily about the two people either side of me. Ironically, both of those people went to the counter and they wanted to withdraw several £1,000s. There was a guy over from the US who wanted money to pay for rent for the next month. And there was an elderly gentleman to the left of me who wanted to draw out £2,000 to give to his grandson who was collecting his car that day, and his grandfather had actually agreed to pay him £2,000 towards it. Now, what happened for both of those was the staff behind the counter said, you need to go downstairs and withdraw £300 from the cash point and then come back to me, and then I'll give you the rest of the money. And one of them actually said, yes, but I want £50 notes and the cash point won't give me £50 notes. That's okay. When you come back, I'll change the £20 notes and give you £50 notes. And actually, so one of them was an elderly gentleman that actually both of them had to go back downstairs, withdraw £300, come back upstairs and withdraw the rest of the cash. Why? So that the system would register that they couldn't withdraw another £300 that day. And the staff didn't explain anything, they just said, actually, you just need to go and do this. So we're going to get the customer to go and do something else in order to satisfy our internal systems and policies. Doesn't feel like a very customer-focused experience in that instance. Another one is, I occasionally go to a casual restaurant chain, sit in benches, a very casual, sit around, informal eating environment. And they have their own quirky way of serving people, including writing notes on your table mat as to your orders. And the service there is great. It's absolutely, there's nothing wrong with the service. But once you've had your food, they, like many pubs and restaurants, will do that thing of come to you afterwards and say, usually when you've got a mouthful of food, and say, is everything okay with your food? Why restaurants do this when they ask you when you can see you've got a mouthful? I've got no idea. But what actually, there's nothing wrong with that about checking in on how your food and your experience is. But what makes me smile every time, or is it actually makes me great every time, is that every time they do that, they then put a massive tick on the placemat. And that sends me a message of, okay, I've been done. I've been processed. Task done, I can move on to my next customer. And it's just like, okay, I know you need to check in with it as, am I satisfied with my food? But actually just saying, oh, I've now ticked you off my to-do list, I'll move on, doesn't really actually give me a great experience. So the banking one is very much around, okay, the system driving the customer experience. And there's all sorts of different solutions to that. You know, if someone's withdrawing £3,000, what is the risk to them withdrawing another £300 that day? Because guess what, in less than 24 hours, they could do that anyway. So part of me might challenge whether the policy, the risk is really that great. But why get a system to drive your customer experience? And the second one is, you know, they've probably been trained, it's a thing around compliance, follow good process, check that the customer is actually happy with their food. So they've been trained that way. And how many times have you phoned a call centre and you get that same scripted experience and you're going through the motions and you're being processed? And it's those things that actually, there's nothing wrong with what needs to happen, it's the way in which you do it. And thinking about actually the emotional experience that it leaves the customers with.
So, the key thing in our in the title was the human touch, and as Derek obviously did his best there to give you enough clues so that you could read between the lines to figure out which restaurant chain he was eating at. Obviously, we're not in the game of naming names, but the worst thing you could possibly do when people like Derek and I are about to present on stage at an event like this is cheese us off. So a certain high street bookmaker, last week or the week before, basically a couple of days after Grand National, really cheesed me and my wife off. So they've kindly given us some more content and another great example of terrible service. So again, not naming any names, but a certain high street bookmaker, my wife realises we've won on the Grand National, and the fact that I'm still here means it was probably only £2.70 or something. It was nothing significant. But she walks into the store, into the bookmakers, and she just happens to have our 5-month-old daughter in a pushchair with her. As soon as she goes in, the woman behind the counter, behind the glass, stands up, and this is her exact words, "You can't come in here with that, love." So, obviously I'm not there, otherwise I would have, turned green. But "you can't come in here with that, love." So Nikki, my wife, sort of, taken aback a little bit. And before she knows it, the woman's come out from behind the counter. "You'll have to go," and she's now in Nikki's face, like this, ushering her out. You'll have to get out. You can't bring that in here, love. You'll have to go." So Nikki sort of politely pointed out that is our daughter, and how am I supposed to collect our winnings? I've got a ticket. Well, you'll have to come back another time, or you'll have to leave the pushchair outside while you come in and collect your ticket. Right. So you now want me to leave my 5-month-old daughter in a pushchair on the street while I come in and collect £2.70. That's the solution. Yet no one under 18 is allowed in. So by this time, the woman's sort of ushering her out. She's got a dozen probably drunk men all staring at her, so she's now really intimidated. Now her experience, all for a couple of quid, her experience has rapidly gone downhill from the euphoria of winning £2.70. She's now feeling really intimidated. She's being literally pushed out of the store. She's surrounded by men. And the solution to that experience is leave your child on the street. Now, why? because the system, the process, the training says we must comply and no one under 18 is allowed in here. Now, I get that. I get the fact that if you're 12, 13, 14, if the potential for you to be influenced by that environment because you are a certain age, I get that you can't come in. But she can't even bloody read. She's 5 months old. You know, how much influence or how much negative influence is she going to get? You know, she probably had the cover. She was probably asleep anyway. But the point is, you know, where's the human touch? Where's that member of staff saying, look, in my head, I know the rules, but come on, common sense says, why don't you wait out there? I'll take your ticket, I'll process it, I'll bring it out. If you really want to comply, but, you know, genuinely, did Nikki have to leave the store? I don't think so. And it's that human touch, it's that, you know, the ability to say, come on, common sense, I know we have rules, but, you know, I'm sure a 5-month-old isn't going to get influenced by the environment that we're bringing her in. And there's none of that flexibility, there's none of that agility, or there's not enough in organisations like that. So, most of the work I do, like we've said earlier, is around innovation. And what we've had waves, right? That's why I call them wave. And the question here is, what's the next wave? And historically, we've had the industrial age or the industrial wave, and that focused on product. So we're going back 100 years now. And the next wave was driven by technology. And it's about information and services and how we combine products and how we combine those services, driven by technology. And the next question we have is, and the work a lot of the work that I do is about what's that next wave? And the next wave is this. It's about experiences and how we use innovation to drive those experiences. It's pretty fair to say that in most industries and in most of our businesses, the products and the services that we either sell or that we give are fairly homogeneous. Most of our competitors have got the same products. Most of our competitors can offer the same service. How we differentiate as organisations is becoming increasingly difficult. And in some industries and some sectors, almost impossible to tell one product or service from another. And as we heard from the hotel chain yesterday, what those guys don't want to do and what you guys definitely don't want to do is have to compete on price. So if product innovation and service innovation is becoming harder to really differentiate, what's the next wave? And the next wave for me is how we build experiences. That is what's going to make our organisations unique. It goes far beyond what we're talking about today in terms of driving experiences. It's about building our whole organisation around differentiating through those experiences. So we don't have to continually try and do it on product or service. I talk about the difference between what and how. And the phrase I use is 21st century competitive advantage is no longer about what you do, it's more about how you do it. It matters less and less in the market that we operate in that your product is similar or the same as your competitors. How you guys will differentiate in the future is how you deliver that product or service, what the experience is like, and how you connect with customers and consumers. The mobile phone market is the same. I'm sure if we all hold and we probably all have smartphones now, but if we all hold those smartphones up, or if we laid them out on stage here, and we took the brands off, they're pretty much all the same. And most of our sectors and most of the markets we operate in are, if we're really, really honest, hand on heart, they're all going the same way. So one of the takeaways today is genuinely figure out and put your innovation efforts into focusing on how you guys do what you do and concentrate less on what you actually do.
So yes, we need to keep operationally efficient, we need to keep the pricing lean, but actually the differentiation is more about how you actually bring your brand alive. Okay, so your brand is brought alive by the experience that your customers have, your distributors have, your suppliers have, your customers have. It is about, actually, it's about how your culture of your organization brings the brand alive. That's going to be the actual differentiation rather than the actual product, because, hey, if you launch a new product, it can be copied in next to no time. It'll be out there within days, weeks. So the actual differentiation has to be around how you bring the brand alive, and do you have a culture that is aligned with that brand and brings that brand alive, or do you have one that is driven by systems and processes, going back to my banking example of the system drives the brand experience rather than the human touch. So it is about the actual bringing the brand alive. A brand is much more than just the identity. And let's think, an obvious example, innocent drinks, which I think in 2011 they identified that 1 in 4 households bought innocent. There is a huge range of smoothies out there. You can buy non-branded. But why is it that people buy smoothies from innocent? It is actually the brand experience, it's the authenticity, it's the personality that goes behind everything they do that actually brings a brand alive. Customers send in stuff into, what do they call it? The towers, fruit towers. So actually customers send in things that, so actually, and it's nothing to do with smoothies, but they just send in things to fruit towers. But the personality down to the imagery, the words that are used on the bottles, the interaction on the phone you have, the employee experience, entrepreneurial, the spirit within Innocent is very entrepreneurial. It's been running since 1999, sent out by 3 guys who tested their product by going to a music festival. And the people who took the smoothies were asked to either put their cup in the yes bin or the no bin, answering the question of, should we give up our jobs on Monday and make these? That's how they started out. But that entrepreneurial spirit is still there, and employees who leave Innocent and move on, actually they've got pages on the website that track those people that have set up, their employees have gone on to set up business. But actually, so it's not about the product, it's about the brand experience that they've brought alive in everything they do. And that's what is the association, and probably these smoothies are more expensive than your non-branded ones. So price, people are prepared to pay price for the experience. There's something about it that actually makes us want to buy it. And it is that quirkiness, it is that personal connection with it that just makes it much more of a product that we would buy. So with what we're seeing now is that actually the balance of power in the relationship has significantly shifted to the consumer. It is very quick and easy for consumers to make your brand or damage your brand. And you're not in control of it. That's what social media does. Technology has enabled the balance to really shift to the consumer in making or breaking your experience, your brand. So, and in that shift, actually the shift is also, the emphasis has moved to the employee experience. Okay? Because guess what? Our customers want to be loved by us. They want a great experience. Okay? Well, let's think about it from an employee point of view. What do they want? They want a great experience as well. So how are you going to create a great customer experience if you're actually not looking after your employees and getting that desire within your employees, getting them aligned behind your purpose, your values, and the way you want things done? Because, as we've talked about, it's the human touch that brings this alive. So the only way your great experience is going to happen is by focusing on your employee experience. You can't tell people to deliver an exceptional customer experience if you don't treat them in the right way internally. So you need to love your staff in order for them to love your customers. So the whole shift has moved from the organization very much to consumer, But in order for that to come alive, it's got to be the employee experience.
So, some more figures here from ICS. And the figures, as you can see, say 81% of you guys now understand that the viewpoint of the customer is absolutely paramount. And the parallels here from the work that I do in terms of innovation, this is where it starts to cross over. Innovation is driven by deep insight, by solving problems, by genuinely understanding the things that we can change and modify and create inside our businesses, but also the problems and the issues and the things we can change and solve for our customers. But we can't do that without really, really, really deep insight, without really understanding our customers, and without being able to put ourselves in their shoes. What's it like to walk in the shoes of our customers? When we know that and when we really focus on that, we then get really tangible, deep, interesting stuff that we can then do something with. All our organizations are capable of being creative. We're capable of the output of that creativity being innovation. But the innovation we get is only as good as the questions that we ask right at the start of that process. And the questions need to come from really genuinely understanding our customers. O2, a perfect example of the things that Derek mentioned earlier. When they first started out, they absolutely understood that in order to create the experience and in their language, create fans out of their customers, their employees had to be fans as well. And if you listen to Ryan at Pets at Home yesterday, they have a perfect example of this statement from O2 in terms of the work they've done and how their staff and their employees absolutely love the business that they're in and animals and pets and things like that. And that transitions into that customer experience.
So let's make this really practical in terms of, start looking at this from a customer journey point of view. And, many organizations have actually mapped their customer journey. But actually, do you look at it from the complete end-to-end experience that your customer is going to have? How many of you actually have kids? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to take an example here of probably many of you would have done. If you don't have kids, you would have done this anyway as a kid probably, and that's your experience of going to a zoo. Okay? So a family considering their options on what to do at the weekend, is probably going to be sat around at home during the week looking at things they could be doing, looking at the weather forecast, how much time they have available, how they're going to get to places. Probably involve surfing the net, and actually, so they will therefore be looking at the zoo website, Facebook pages, TripAdvisor, in order to inform the decision about what they're going to do at the weekend. Okay? Many of those touch points are things that actually are influencing their decision. So the online experience will be influencing their decision, but it'll be the things that are said on TripAdvisor, etc., that will also influence it. All sounds very obvious. So, okay, family decide, and they will probably purchase online because it's efficient from our point of view as an organisation to process the tickets and for them to come up and go through a speed queue on arrival so that we don't actually need so many staff to serve tickets. So efficiency can work. You've then got the actual, again, welcome at the zoo. Is it easy to get to the car park? Is there any queues? When they're waiting, if there is a queue, are staff friendly and helpful? Is that experience just brought alive? Are they explained about, as a family, are they told about the events that are going on that day? If they're a charity, do they have gift aid explained to them and what a difference it makes? Again, all fairly obvious things. But there are some things that actually, aren't in your control. So this is a fairly standard customer journey. But there are some things that are absolutely not in our control. And living in the UK, there is something that comes up quite often, which is called rain. And so you can have, on a rainy day within the UK, which is pretty common, staff will be going about their normal duties, responsibilities, doing processes, doing things in the same way. But what happens on rainy days? Guess what? staff generally do the same things. So there's generally an acceptance that, do you know what? It's a rainy day, moods are going to be dampened, people aren't going to have as much fun, and that's just normal. Well, why don't we change that experience? Okay, I would challenge whether it could be as good if it was a nice, glorious, sunny day, but why don't you do something different, different events, make something of it. Make fun of the rain, get staff to interact with visitors on a completely different way on a rainy day to a sunny day. The reason being, because their experience that they're going to walk away with is significantly better than just accepting, oh yeah, we had a rainy day at the zoo. So they walk away with a better experience. What are they more likely to do? Come back again on a sunny day. So you're going to get repeat visitors, you're going to get extra spend, all based on changing the experience based around things that aren't always in your control. And that's the staff that make that experience change. Because staff will still need to go about their normal duties, but recognizing that actually it's raining, do something different around it. You still need to do the same things, but you can do them in a completely different way. Take it back into the website. If there's things around what you do on rainy days, put that in the website so that when people are looking at it thinking, oh, okay, so if it is going to rain, at least there's some different stuff going on. But these are all things that are very easy to change because they're all within our control. It's just actually embedding into your culture the way that your staff think in terms of, okay, what do I want the experience to be like? How is our brand? How do we want our brand to come alive, in this instance, on a rainy day? So that's a fairly simplistic and a cut-down customer journey and how things outside of our control. Another example that actually about stretching your customer journey and really thinking about what the customer journey is, Virgin Upper Class. So what Virgin have done is actually thought about what is the true end-to-end customer journey when their customers actually get on a flight. Okay? It's not around being in the Virgin Lounge, being on the aircraft, the way the staff are, interacting, and whether Richard Branson dresses up as an air hostess and might be serving you drinks. That's not going to be, the experience necessarily you want. But what they've done is actually thought the customer experience, the customer journey starts once they've gone through all the booking when they want to leave their home. Okay? So normally you've got all the stresses of getting to the airport, leaving your car, going through security, doing your baggage, going through security, and all those things that are actually nothing to do with Virgin. What Virgin have said is, we're going to take control of that, and we're going to actually, we will pick you up from home. You will identify which bags are in the hold, which are hand baggage. We will check you in on the journey to the airport. They're doing this in the car, whilst you're drinking champagne or whatever. It's all being done for you. You arrive at the airport, your bags are taken care of. You are taken through special airport security, straight into the Virgin Lounge. So you don't experience anything that you would have normally experienced. So they've extended the elements of the customer journey from what they did control before to those things that they can control and influence and put in a completely different experience. So, challenge whether you are influencing all of the customer journey, as well as thinking about the things that do actually happen within your natural customer journey, and can you change the experience? And so creating all of this is all around your employees. What's the employee experience? And a lot of this comes down to, yes, we need to have systems and processes. We need to have policies. Yes, that is, I'm not denying that. However, this is about enabling your people to make the judgment about what's the right thing to do in this situation. Nick's experience at the book is. What is the right thing to do It's about making a judgment about what to do. In that instance, knowing all those things about policies and procedures, but also knowing what does your brand, what is your service experience, what does it all stand for, and enabling your people to do that. That sounds remarkably like employee engagement. Okay? It sounds a bit like empowerment. Well, hasn't empowerment been around for quite a long time? Yes, it has. But what's happened with going for efficiency is that we've become very process and system driven. And actually, I think there has been a change of behavior through the financial crisis. I see a number of organizations where the leadership teams within the organization, they're not making decisions. Whereas somebody would have made a decision before, they're actually going for a team-based decision. So they've gone very risk-averse. Why? Because they're scared about consequences. So how can you empower your employees to do things if your leadership aren't actually doing it either? Why? Because many of them are actually covering their ass. That's reality. I see it in so many where people would have made a decision before. Now it's, oh, I've got to get my team to make that decision. So if it's happening at the top, how can you enable your people to make judgments about the right thing to do? Because you're not actually equipping them with the capability to do that. And a key influencer in making this happen is about enabling your frontline managers to create that culture whereby people can do it. So you need to engage your people in understanding what it is you're trying to achieve, how you're trying to achieve it, to equip them to be able to make those judgments. But it requires a different type of leadership. So it's not old words regurgitated. It actually, you need to think differently about it now. So in terms of what we think the future looks like, it is around, yes, you need the insight. You need to gather the insight from the customers. And this doesn't mean what we've done in years gone by of capturing data in a call center into a CRM system, codifying it. It actually means getting real insight and acting on it really quickly. Don't gather data for 12 months and then think, oh, what should we do? This has got to be a lot more dynamic. This innovation is a rapid thing. You need to move quite quickly with it. So gather the insight, but collaborate with your customers. Involve them in the exercise to drive and really tease out what it is that will make a difference to your customers, because the Virgin experience has been driven by customers as well. It doesn't take that much insight to then think, actually, the stresses of getting to the airport, making sure I'm going to get there on time, it's all taken away. So involve your customers collaborating with you to actually develop the future products and services with very much an emphasis on the service and the experience, the how you do things. You need to be a lot more agile. Okay? It is about speed, it's about moving, because consumer behavior is moving very fast as well. So the next generation of customer experience is about getting the insight, collaborating with customers, and being very agile. Having that in the culture of innovation that allows you to move really rapidly.
Just back to that point, actually, we had a really great little example of the collaboration and the power of that from M&S yesterday. Do you remember the little story that she told about was it Percy Pigs? And creating new flavours by that co-creation with customers about what flavours do you want, etc., etc. And it's a really simple thing, but don't underestimate the power of asking your customers to create a product which they want to buy, because it changes the relationship from you trying to come up with what you think they want to them telling you exactly what they want, helping you design it, helping you co-create it, helping you innovate. And then, strangely enough, them handing them over money for the thing they've asked you to supply. So one of the challenges is, and if any of you have read any of the recent stuff by Cotter on the dual operating system and managing the business of today, i.e. managing the present and managing the future, some of the stuff that we're looking at now and we're working on is about how we do that in organizations. We can't expect organizations to change overnight and to become agile and to become these innovation leaders that we all want to be. It's not going to happen overnight. And there are parameters in every business that mean we have to manage the day-to-day, we have to manage the present and manage what's happening on a day-to-day basis. But we also have to look at innovation. So how do we do that? And the stuff that I've just mentioned, the stuff that Cotter's talking about at the moment in terms of dual operating systems is really, really interesting. And I would encourage you to have a look at that. What he's basically talking about is, and the analogy I don't particularly like the thing about thinking outside the box, but the analogy sort of works here. And what he's talking about is, how do we package the day-to-day and the stuff that we have to do, and the operational stuff, and managing the present? How do we keep that? We don't want to jeopardize some of the things we're doing, and there are some things that we can't change, but we can't not look at innovation because we're too concerned about upsetting or rocking the boat or rocking the day-to-day. So for us, the innovation stuff in the future needs to happen at the minute separately. There has to be two modes of operation, these dual operating systems that Cotter's talking about. Manage the day-to-day, but outside of that, with different parameters and different rules, look at innovation. Encourage things like flexibility, experimentation, agility, empowering, giving people on the front line the ability to make decisions. And in the parallel to innovation is, it's allowing them maybe to take a little bit of risk. But we have to start looking at those things. We have to start building innovation into how we operate as businesses. The two things that we need to really focus on is, how do we build that innovation culture into our organizations? And how do we balance that then with delivering really, really great customer experiences? And for me and for Derek and the work that we do together, they're one in the same thing. As Derek explained earlier, and I don't know whether any of you followed Mike Wittenstein's tweets over the past, several weeks. Mike's been a fairly prolific tweeter. And if any of you are fortunate enough to be involved in any of his sessions, one of Mike's tweets that I really remember is, you can't have an amazing customer experience without an amazing employee experience. So the takeaway is, start at home, start and build an amazing, innovative culture within your organization. And the natural byproduct will be the experience your customers have. And we want to quickly finish with sort of a mantra, if you like. When I was running my companies, the questions that I used to ask myself were based around behavior and were based around emotion. And they're quite sort of deep questions, but you'll see the parallels in terms of how we summarize what we've been talking about. And the first thing is, how do we drive really deep understanding in our organization? And how do we understand exactly what the customer needs? How do we walk in their shoes? And how do we get that really deep insight? And the parallels with innovation is, as I mentioned before, that's exactly where innovation starts, with that deep insight. So balance, in your organizations, look at balancing those two things. The next thing is, where are our opportunities? Where do we need to be good? And where is it all right to be good, but where do we absolutely have to be exceptional? It's all right to be good at certain things. You don't have to be absolutely phenomenal at everything. What you need to do is be really, really clever about the bits you need to be exceptional at. And those opportunities, those are the low-hanging fruit. That's where you can really drive innovation. You can do things differently in a really focused way, and your customers will give you that innovation badge. They will label you as innovative. And the final thing is personalization. Derek's talked about values and the things that drive your organization. And just like customer service, it has to be absolutely personal. There's no one-size-fits-all for amazing customer experiences. Make that experience about the values and about the core things that your organization believes in. And innovation is exactly the same. The thing that's really going to drive innovation is how we make that innovation personal, how we make it unique. So I'm going to summarize that with the three drivers, the three emotions. And these are questions that I used to ask myself. And they're based around three things: our people our people, our customers, and our competitors. And the sense check for me and the sense check for your organisation should be this. Do our people absolutely love what we do and how we do it? And the parallels, again, I've mentioned Ryan before, but the parallels there, you get this. Are we building an absolutely amazing place to work? And the values, you'll all have different ones, but, some of the work Derek does is around the different values, around, values, purpose, what's the experience like? What's the culture like? What's the leadership like? How are we genuinely building an amazing place to work? And the next one then is desire. Do our customers not just want, not just need what we've got, the product service, do they absolutely desire our organisation? Have we built a relationship with them that is more about us? Are they buying us, or are they buying the products that we sell? And the final one is envy. What I wanted originally was to be able to sit my board team round the boardroom and say, are our competitors sat in the same meeting at the moment, scratching their heads, saying, how the hell do those guys do that? Are we building an organisation where we know our competitors are frustrated because they haven't got the relationships with the customers that we have, because they haven't got an organisation where everyone absolutely loves to work for them? And Innocent's a great example. And only then do you get genuine differentiation above product or service. Only then do your customers label you with the innovation badge. And only then do you get the type of performance that means you consistently stick at the top of that customer satisfaction survey that we showed you earlier. So that's our sense check. Those are the drivers. And the thing that Derek and I want you to take away from today is constantly ask yourself, where's the human touch? Thank you.